Hello, and welcome to episode number 71 of Future Chat from Unwind Media. Every week on this show, we take an hour or so to discuss all the week's most interesting science and tech news, and we're glad you're here with us. This episode is brought to you by Audible.com. To help out our show and get a free audiobook of your choice as well as a free 30-day trial, please do visit audibletrial.com/unwind. They have over 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products for you to try. We got some big news this week. After our 2-week hiatus, somebody is back.
Who could it be?
Who could it be? This podcaster I do see. Can you help
me guess this mystery?
He's got a man bun, a beard, and makes us laugh.
That singing is not going to sync up well. Oh man, Nick is back. Nick, let's just get right into it. Give us, where have you been how long has it been? I feel like it's been maybe 3 months.
It hasn't been 3 months, but it's been a long time.
It feels like it's been 3 months.
It really does. I was listening and catching up on all the episodes this week, and I missed you guys.
Yeah.
I was working on the Liberal campaign as their special projects coordinator.
Okay. And did they run out of special projects?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. Like
the writing's a lock, basically, is pretty much what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that must be it. No, they put me in charge of signs and sign distribution, but our campaign manager stepped down just because he couldn't give the hours that were needed in a day-to-day setting. So we had another campaign manager come up and look at all that we had done and all that we needed to do, and looked at the work that had been done on the signage front, and looked at it and said, you know, we're actually pretty well set for this, and if we could save on our payroll budget, that would be great. So apparently that's just, one of those things.
What I'm hearing is that you did your job too well.
I am. That's how I'm describing it. I worked myself out of a job. That's what we'll go with.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to hearing more about your future job prospects. But we're glad you're back for the time being.
Exactly. We are. It's a ray of sun in this cloudy situation.
Yes.
I went to Grand Prairie in my hiatus. That was fun.
Nice.
Also Grand Cache.
We hit Grand Cache on the way back from Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mike, we also have a piece of follow-up that's not in the show yet, but I figured we may as well mention it. You have a microphone in front of you now.
Mike has a mic.
Yep.
Mike's mic.
What's going on with that?
Hello.
Oh.
It's an investment. I figure since we do this every week and you guys have stepped up and made yourselves sound good, and I sound like relative crap on a week-to-week basis compared to you guys. I figure I may as well step up my game, put both feet in, and invest in the hi-fi side of things. So
that's good. You just gotta get in there, give it 110% every shift, and shorten up those passes, stick to the fundamentals, and things will go well.
Yeah, finish your checks, hustle hard.
Yeah, you'll be checking and shooting and come out big.
Yeah, just got to score more than the other team. That's pretty much what you got to do.
That's just what you got to do.
Yeah.
Who is the other team in this scenario?
This is so weird.
Everyone else is the other team.
Oh man, but okay, so you got a mic. Nick is back. Mike, why don't you tell us what you've been doing the last 2 weeks that we have not had a show?
Well, to start with, clearly I'm the one that holds the show together because we can't do a show unless I'm here.
Clearly.
So, aside from that, we did a little excursion down to Disney World with a family.
Wait, is that the Californian one?
That's the Floridian one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the big one, the one that apparently not the original. I always thought it was the original, but
what?
Disneyland was the original.
Disneyland is the original, I believe.
Yeah. It is. I learned that this past week. Yeah.
I don't believe you.
True story.
It's
You should
impossible.
check it out. You should go sometime, and you'd learn lots.
To the one in Florida?
Either one, you learn
I've
probably
been
the
to
same
the one in
fact.
Florida.
Oh, then you should have known this already.
I'm from the East. That's what we do. We go to Florida.
I feel like that's
So-
not true.
Have you heard of snowbirds, Rob?
I
Have you?
have, but you're not one.
People in the West go to Mexico. People in the East go to Florida. That's how it works.
That's how it works. That is the natural order of things.
Yeah. Anyway, I was in Florida doing my Disney World thing, and I guess kind of following up in the same style as Rob's summary of how his tech experience was while traveling in Hawaii. I kind of paid a bit more attention to the tech side of things in Disney, and it was actually pretty good. I brought my phone with me, no computer, just because I don't normally use a computer on a day-to-day basis. But prior to leaving, both myself and Maria got a U.S. travel pack from Fido. They offer that with purchase of $5 or using $5. So
Okay.
since I don't use $5 anyway, then I may as well use it on something that might be useful. So that came with like 200 megabytes of data, which is the main thing that we were concerned about, was using data. And turns out, well, I guess we knew this before we left, but we weren't sure how reliable it would be. But Disney World actually has widespread Wi-Fi throughout their resorts, the parks, and yeah, basically pretty much anywhere you are that's Disney owned, they'll have Wi-Fi there. So, and your phone obviously just connects whenever the Wi-Fi is around. It's all the same network, so it'll just jump on as soon as you're within range, regardless
That
of
is
the resort you're
actually
at.
fantastic utility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Given that you're spending 2 hours in line every single time.
oh, exactly. And it was very reliable and fast Wi-Fi too. Like, it wasn't like useless Wi-Fi. It wasn't like, oh, you're on Wi-Fi but you can't do anything. I'd say it was as fast as the regular Fido network. So I didn't notice any difference in quality. So that was nice to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then that way, you take pictures and they auto upload because you're on Wi-Fi. And I really didn't have to use the network data except for GPS navigation, like with the Google Maps, because I actually downloaded Google Maps offline, but apparently you can't navigate with offline maps, which they're changing for their next version of Google Maps.
Well, thank God.
But
You can, but you have to have GPS.
no, you can't navigate.
Oh.
You can look at the map and say, I'm on this road, this is where I'm going, and it will show your GPS marker, but you can't navigate take directions and navigate using offline maps.
Did you start it and then start
Yeah.
driving? Because I've navigated on the iOS Google Maps app, but I started it while I had connectivity. Like I mapped the route. And
Oh
then
no,
started
yeah,
and
no,
then
I
it
didn't do
started.
no. That obviously would work because we'd already loaded the navigation. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but yeah, I just hoped that I wouldn't even have to buy data because the only network data I'd need was with Google Maps. So that was pretty much the only reason that I had to buy the network data was for navigation. So,
Right.
but yeah, no, it was actually a pretty good experience technologically. Didn't really have any difference in my regular routine from here. So that was good. But if you look at my data usage on my phone, because Android keeps track of that, your cellular versus Wi-Fi data usage, you can like pinpoint the date that I left because my cellular data is normally like this, and then it's like flat for 2 weeks, and then my Wi-Fi is normally flat, and then it spikes. So
Right.
it's pretty funny, but
Nice.
it worked out.
Yeah. Nick, you did something starting at the end of last week, beginning of this week,
Beginning
that
of
you
this
hadn't
week.
tried before. I've tried it, but you hadn't tried it. What have you been
Is
doing?
Is this something we can talk about on air? Oh, you mean the Soylent?
You've been
Not
doing
the
that for
other
a long
thing.
time, Nick.
Yeah, the other thing, Nick. Jeez.
Yeah, no, I got Soylent.
Yeah.
So I've been taking that for kind of breakfasty, lunchy kind of sort of thing.
And
It's interesting because when you look at the Soylent and how it all works out, you really see the utility in splitting your food intake into 4 separate smaller meals throughout the day, and that's basically what's happened to me this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually job hunting during the mornings, and Soylent is fantastic for that. You can just sit down with a mug of it, and it's like having a feed bag, but
It's
while you're
exactly
working
like
to death.
that.
It's fantastic. I've always wanted something that you could just, was nutritionally complete, and you could just chip away at.
Exactly, and you didn't have to
And
think about it. You just
it's finally here.
yeah.
Soylent, official food stuff of Future Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's almost been, there's a month in the middle where I didn't really have it, but since the end of June, beginning of July, I've been having it every day that I've gone to work. I've been having it for lunch.
And you're
And
looking slimmer.
that has coincided with about 15 to 20 pounds of weight loss in that time. 2 weeks of which was honeymoon, so I didn't care at all about what I was eating. And yeah, there's a lot of decadent food in that time, but it's been extremely useful in terms of weight loss because it, like as you mentioned, it fills you up, and you don't really have to think about it. You just
Yeah.
eat a normal amount of food. You're not trying to go crazy eating too much. It's nice.
And on that note, one thing I do notice about it is it's really good at keeping you full.
Mhm.
And I noticed that they use a lot of oat flour in the 1.5 powder version.
Yep.
It really does remind me of eating oatmeal because at times I will know that I'm experiencing a caloric deficit just because I've, got up and walked or gone for a bike ride in the morning. And I have like the symptoms of being hungry, but at the same time, I'm so full that I couldn't possibly eat anything. And so it's like great tool for weight loss in that sense.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Is that a good
Yeah.
thing though?
It is a good thing.
yeah. Well, it depends on what exactly you want.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
your stomach's full. It
You're not
just
going
needs
for
to process
full.
what's in it.
You're going for nutrition,
Yeah,
energy.
it has all of that. It's all in your stomach. You just haven't necessarily digested it yet, but it
But-
doesn't take very long.
From what Nick's sounding, his blood sugar gets low, but he's still full. Like his energy is low.
But I think it's just it hasn't kicked in yet. Because like one of the
That's-
things they
That
mentioned,
could be it. Yeah.
they reformulated the latest, the 1.5, or it might have been the 1.4. But one of the recent updates, they formulated it so it used sugars that had lower glycemic index, so they don't spike your blood sugar as quickly.
Yeah, that was the 1.5.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's probably what you're describing, and I know I felt the same way, that it's not at all like it has sugars, it has carbs, but it's not like eating candy sugar that it'll just give you a rush of sugar.
Right. Well, Nick, I know you're familiar with cycling and how intense cyclists are with keeping up their calories while riding. Like, say
They
the
sure are.
100-kilometer, 200-kilometer rides or whatever.
Have I shared that video of like it's like the more you cycle, the more calories you can get away with, and it has a line of cyclists, like the first one's eating a baguette, and then the team car pulls up to the next one and puts out just like a personal pizza, and the guy like starts eating that. The third guy gets like Chinese noodles. And
Yeah. But
Yeah,
see, that's the thing, is that the food they're taking, they're literally eating while riding, but it's all just like gel packs.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally raw energy and it's quick energy, right? But if
Yeah.
from the sound of it, the Soylent doesn't give you that quick energy. It's the slow digesting one, which is what you want on a daily basis, not if you're going for a couple 100-kilometer bike ride.
yeah, and I mean the couple 100-kilometer bike ride, like if you tried to subsist on that, it wouldn't go well.
No.
Well,
Go long and short, because it's all salt and sugar.
yeah.
And
But
so,
so-
like, the Soylent is a more slower burning thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you wanted to use Soylent as a sort of long distance endurance type nutrition, I think you'd have to
That would
start
be a
off.
terrible idea.
No, I think you'd have to start off at before, like half an hour or something, or an hour before.
Oh, you would
Start,
have
and
to
then
start
just keep
eating
going.
like hours before, depending
Yeah.
on the distance of the ride. But I mean, you'd also have to watch out for your vitamin intake, because
But it has vitamins.
no, I'm saying you could overdo it on the vitamins
Mm,
if you were just doing Soylent.
if you were having more than a day's worth, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. But luckily, I haven't had to do that yet. And
I haven't burned 6,000 calories in a day.
no, I
so-
wouldn't. You shouldn't have 6,000 calories worth of Soylent. Oh man, yeah. So I don't know. we haven't actually talked about the Apple stuff yet. I put in a follow-up here that I'm not getting an iPhone tomorrow. As we're recording now, by the time this episode comes out, it will have already happened.
Well, let's back up and talk about what Apple announced in our absence, because we didn't talk about that.
Right. There's a couple things that we want to discuss. I don't know if we need to touch on everything because we don't want to bore Nick half to death. But we could talk about a few of the things that kind of most impact us, and then I'll talk about why I'm not getting a phone tomorrow, even though I reserved it for in-store pickup.
So you're that guy.
Yeah, I'm you from the spring, I guess.
Me? I never reserved anything and didn't pick it up.
You just made appointments that you missed.
Oh, that's true. But I did show up eventually.
That's true, and I will show up eventually. But yeah, so I guess we'll start there then. There's a bit of car news that I deemed more important just because it's more recent. But Mike, what did you think of, or I guess what did you deem most important from the Apple event?
I just didn't know what they were going to announce, aside from what everyone expected them to, because they have their clockwork-like release schedule.
Yeah.
That they have. I think everyone anticipated the Apple TV to get an update, which it did. And the iPad, it was at least strongly rumored, or if not already confirmed, that they were going to announce a new iPad, which they did. And
there was a software update to go along with that, wasn't there?
There was, Nick.
Public iOS 9, yeah. But the iOS 9 beta for a while.
Okay, because I read...
job on recognizing that.
No, I recognized that story because I was checking up on Ubuntu news not long ago, and there was one that had the headline, Apple copies Ubuntu, semicolon, passes it off as innovation.
So you accidentally read Apple News, is what you're trying to say. I did,
yeah.
What were they referring to?
The sidebar thing, where you can keep multiple apps going or something like that, and then you can just snap them to the snap currently running apps to the sidebar.
Yeah.
No, not reading. Okay. Yeah, no, apparently Ubuntu's done that for a while, and they made a big deal about it. Kind of like with workspaces.
Yeah.
And then Apple was like, hey, that's a great idea. Steely.
Okay, so I guess that's a good segue into my thoughts on the event as a whole, because in hearing the news that they were announcing, I was like, wow, that's cool. Oh, that looks nice. Wow, that's awesome. That's really useful. And as I think about it, I'm like, wait, this isn't really new in an industry sense. It's just new for Apple to do it. But my reaction was impressiveness for it.
Like you were impressed.
I was impressed by it, and I read, people have been saying it for a bit, but I read the kind of consistent theme during the keynote was Apple is renowned for letting others trial ideas and test the market, and then Apple does the same thing and does it so incredibly well that it trumps pretty much everything that's been done before it.
Yeah.
Like they just do it so much better. But obviously at a price, which is kind of the other consistent theme that I heard during the keynote, was just people shocked at how much money they had to throw at Apple to get anything that they were putting out.
That's normal.
Aside from the Apple TV actually sounds like a reasonably priced device, but
the States is a whole different story. We in Canada now have a 25% premium on everything, and that just brings everything to a ridiculous state where spending
including Soylent, by the way.
Well, no.
Yeah, I might be thinking of something different. Are we talking about the state of the Canadian dollar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not paying $1,200 instead of $900. You're paying what, $25 instead of $15 or something?
How much do you think Soylent is?
I'm just throwing numbers out there.
74 as opposed to 64.
Order of magnitude, Rob. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, Rob, tell us what you picked out of the keynote, and Nick and I can comment on it. Mostly me.
So I've been waiting. I've been waiting. We didn't even follow up on this. I skipped right over it, but we didn't really talk much about TV gaming. You wanted to follow up. I
Oh
asked you
yeah.
actually. I gave you homework to follow up on
I
multiplayer.
haven't. I just didn't. I
Oh, I
put
know.
it in the follow-up notes.
That's what I'm saying. I skipped over
Yeah.
it by accident. Anyways,
Oh,
uh,
how I've missed this.
yeah, the Apple TV is something that I've been waiting for a refresh for probably 2 to 3 years now. I've been waiting for it to do just a little bit more. And as soon as I watched what they announced, I just said yes. I don't care what the exchange rate is. I'm getting that when it comes out, which is late October. And so they will have multiplayer gaming on the Apple TV, which I'm told is not new, as we've discussed with the iPad stuff. But you can get controllers for the Apple TV, or people will be making them. You can control one player on the game on your TV from your phone, or multiple people can do that from their own phones. That in itself is enough for me to do that, just because I think Julia and I will often sit there on the couch playing our own iPhone games or iPad games, and this would give us a very solid reason, like to make it much more easy for us to play the same game at the same time. And I just think that will happen, and I'm certainly going to be encouraging it to
Yeah.
happen.
You're adorable.
But I've just been waiting for so long for this Apple TV that won't just have a set of channels that Apple decides on. I love the idea that it has apps, and I love that I'm seeing people actually wanting to put them on. I noticed Plex is getting an app, so I'm probably going to get Plex. It just all around, the Apple TV sounds really awesome.
The Chromecast has Plex already.
Yeah, but the Chromecast is fine. I'm not hating on the Chromecast. I love the Chromecast.
I see what you're saying about if you guys already play games together in the same room but separately,
Yeah.
I can see how that would be a draw for you. And when I saw what the new Apple TV could do, I was impressed by it. Like I said, it was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I thought, like, well, that's not new, but it's well implemented the way they've done it. And I originally said, yeah, I want it. But then thinking about it more, I'm like, I don't play games, and I don't watch sports. So the two cool things I found, the multiplayer gaming and the implementation of the apps and the real-time stats and that kind of thing as you're watching, that all looked really cool. And I'd love to go to someone's house and play a game or watch sports, but I would never do it at my own house. So I'm like, well, maybe that's not something for me to purchase. I'd love to use it and try it, but I wouldn't want to purchase it. And on that note, I did actually, on an unrelated reason, get an Apple TV, one of the older ones, the third gen Rev 1,
Yeah.
or Rev A, I think it's called, and for the remote desktop AirPlay functionality, or the extended desktop AirPlay functionality, I should say. And because I've been wanting to hook up to get dual monitors for our MacBook Air, like two external displays,
Yeah.
which apparently the MacBook can't support hardwired in, but you can hardwire one external and AirPlay the second. So that's what we have set up right now.
Sweet.
So because both Maria and myself have found that we're wanting the dual. Like I have a dual display at work, which is awesome, and Maria's
It's
finding that
amazing.
she's wanting it is. So, but yeah, as far as the Apple TV, I'm impressed by it, and I think it's exciting to see what they're bringing to the iOS market.
Yeah. As for the iPad, the Pro one is really interesting. If I had a lot of disposable income, I would absolutely buy it just because it's such an amazing artistic tool. I've always wanted, since I had a Windows tablet back in 2006, 2007, I've always loved writing on a computer. And this pencil, the Apple Pencil, just seems incredible. I'm going to have to go and try it out in a store in a couple months after November, after it dies down. But obviously it's not for me. I like my tablets, although I don't really use it that much. I like my tablets to have cellular data, and you need to spend like $1,000. The highest storage one is the only one that has cellular.
Yeah.
So the iPad's nice. We're probably not the best people suited to discuss the sort of technical things. There are many other tech podcasts that will do that.
Oh, like specs and stuff?
I mean,
Yeah, right. Well, it's big and it has a stylus. That's
I
great.
actually had a lengthy conversation about that stylus with, you met him, Derek.
Yeah.
Or Mike met him. I'm currently staring at Mike's face. But no, Derek, who does a lot of graphic stuff, talked to me about the stylus they came out with. Apparently, it is in fact a great big deal.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It has an accelerometer in it to sense the tilt angle that it has with the screen.
Yeah, and it does a whole bunch of stuff that's really cool. Like, and the big deal is that it does it so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a tablet with 4 gigs of RAM is going to be ridiculous once Adobe gets their hands on it. I'm really intrigued to see what happens, but I don't think it's necessarily for the average consumer. That's why they call it the iPad Pro.
Yeah. Well, the other point that we should talk about is how they're marketing it as a replacement for a primary computer.
Yeah.
Like they released their keyboard attachment that has this kind of crazy plug-in thingy that it has at the bottom to plug into the keyboard thing. And I guess it's going to work with other peripherals as well to utilize whatever functionality that it might offer. But yeah, I think it's a very intriguing device to use as a primary computer because essentially it's literally the same size as a MacBook Air screen. A 13-inch MacBook Air screen is going to be the same dimension. So you may as well, if you're in the market for a laptop, you may as well get the iPad Pro and have the functionality. Not as in like, oh, it's easy. Just it could be in that consideration if you're willing to spend the money on it. Yeah,
it's a great device, but I think you'd need to justify the cost in comparison to a laptop. I think you'd have to be ready to or excited to use the artist features, the pencil features.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll have to see how it compares to the Surface, but it seems like the stylus blows it out of the water. The input might. I mean, they're talking about the whole 240 times a second refresh when you're using the pen, which is unbelievable. I was hearing a lot of people talking who had tried it in the demo area that there is still some lag, which is kind of disappointing. But I guess that's like with digital devices, that's basically just what you end up with. And
can we talk about how
there isn't any?
Can we talk about how the keynote featured Microsoft and Adobe?
Yeah.
Because that was kind of funny. I know, like, I was watching the live blogs and Twitter as the keynote was going on because I couldn't watch it on any of my devices. I guess the iPhone wouldn't even load the keynote, so I was just following the live blog. But when like Microsoft came out, people were like, "What? Oh, Microsoft's here. What? Adobe's here too." And then it was kind of like, I think some people were like, oh, Apple's like parading their defeated enemies in front of them at their keynote or something like that. But I think that was kind of a stretch. But I guess it was interesting to see them collaborating and actually like advertising for Apple at their own keynote, which is, it was weird. It was a paradigm shift for me, I think.
But Microsoft have done demos before, as have Adobe.
For Apple?
Yeah. Not on a mobile device.
Maybe I just haven't been paying attention until recently, but
it's been a while though.
Yeah.
The last, I guess you wanted to talk, well, you at least wrote it down. You want to talk about the iPhone upgrade program. I also want to talk about it. Apparently, as of tonight, the last, I didn't hear which carrier it was, but the last of the 4 major U.S. carriers announced they will also be starting up their own yearly upgrade program for the
iPhone course.
Specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting on board with this.
So let's talk about what it is.
Yeah.
First. Did you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you wrote an explanation on it already in Slack, no less.
I did.
Yeah.
I did a lot of math trying to figure out how much it would cost in Canada, and it's a little ridiculous, which makes me think it's a little ridiculous in the States. But basically it's only ridiculous if you think you can sell your phone for more than half its original value a year later, because that's how much it's costing you every year, is half its original value.
Well, before getting into the numbers, the idea of the Apple upgrade or iPhone upgrade program is you're essentially financing your phone with the with a possibility of upgrading it, like trading it in on an annual basis and just restarting your 2-year financing program.
Right. You are literally doing that.
Yeah.
They make you
It's through a
sign up.
bank. Yeah.
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 So you pay 1/24th the total cost of the phone for
Plus
the
Apple
12
Care.
months.
Yeah.
Plus, the phone plus Apple Care. And then after 12 months, you have the option of getting a brand new phone, trading in your old one, and starting a new 2-year finance program, and then just doing that indefinitely as long as they keep releasing phones. It's not a great idea mathematically if you're willing to sell your phone, but if that is worth several $100s to you, then it's a lot less work to have to just do this.
Yeah.
If you have the disposable income for that, I'd say it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. But if you ride out your 2-year financing, you're essentially, are you breaking even as if you bought it outright? There must be some sort of additional cost to doing that.
No, it's exactly breaking even because the financing is just for the phone plus Apple Care for 2 years.
Oh, so there's no added like cost because you're allowed to finance, like a pseudo interest? Like there's no.
No.
Oh, then why wouldn't you do that if you're planning on buying it outright anyway?
Well, you can do that. They're forwarding that they're using their 190 whatever billion dollar cash pile to finance people to get them to upgrade every year, because no person who is willing to sign up for this upgrade program is gonna go, no, like I could get a brand new iPhone right now, but I'm gonna wait and keep paying the same amount, keep my old one for an extra year, and then have it at the end of the 2 years. But now you have a 2-year-old phone and nobody wants it.
Right. Well, and I think going back to what you're saying, this is for people who wouldn't sell their phone after they're done with it, and that is the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna buy the new iPhone anyway, then you may as well pay half the cost of the phone and then just get a new phone every year versus paying the entire cost and just having an old iPhone kicking around.
Right.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who do that. A lot of tech people just buy an iPhone and then next year buy another one. They have a drawer full of old ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I guess that leads pretty well into not why I'm not getting a phone, but the fact that I'm not getting a new phone. It's been since 2011, I think I've gotten one every year and just sold the old one. This year, a combination of having about 2 weeks left of my current contract before venturing into the unknown, whether that's an extension of that same contract or a slightly different job or going into unemployment, remains to be seen. And so there's apparently, I would still do it. Apparently that's not enough financial stability. And so I'm accepting that.
Hint, Julia.
I've already tried making the argument, and I have to see reason. I do, as we've discussed.
You're gonna say she.
No. As we've discussed, I want to have a child, and I understand they're very expensive, and so it seems like a good idea to just wait a little bit, see how my job situation turns out, and then make a decision once I know more than 2 weeks into my future.
Yeah.
But I am disappointed, I've got to say.
But man, unemployment would sting so much less with that new phone to explore.
You don't have to tell me. The thing is, I have been saving up for it. Like, I've been putting money away, thinking September, phone, just like I do every year. So I have the money. It's just right now it would be very unwise to spend it on that, not knowing what my future holds, which is the unfortunate part. But
that's very mature of you, Rob.
No, it's very mature of her. But I'm glad I'm with her for that reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just that one?
Well, that and many others, but that's the one that's relevant to this conversation.
I was gonna say, you're like, yeah, for that reason. It's like, that's it.
It's like they have financial planners for that.
Yeah, true. I was making the joke. I was talking to the guys from Mobile Syrup this afternoon, describing my plight, and just basically being like, oh, like I went along in the joke, like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I had it reserved, and I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna wait, and started being like, no, you know what? I'll do it. I'm downloading divorce papers right now. I've made my
Downloading
choice.
divorce papers even.
But no, I am choosing love over technology for now.
Also shelter and food and electricity.
Yeah, but I have money for that. Like I said, I've been saving up for this phone. I've been saving up with the idea that I'm going to get this phone. So
Right.
yeah. Anyways, I guess we have some of Nick's news. Nick, rather than adding, you were kind of a last minute addition to this chat. We weren't sure you were going to make it.
I thought I told you I'd make it.
No, you told us you were going to try. But anyways,
Oh, okay.
point being, the stories Nick has in here are ones we haven't talked about, but they are his favorites from the time he missed in the last couple months.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be sprinkled
Incidentally,
throughout.
I've had basically a dedicated researcher working on that for me.
Okay.
Shout out to senior research assistant Kaya, who
Friend of the show, by the way.
friend of the show, yeah. Can we say that? Is that making it too serious?
No, she's been on the show. She waved at us.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
It's true, she did, yeah.
Yeah.
But part of her job in the summer was monitoring Twitter feeds, and that ended up with a lot of tech stories for me. No,
Okay.
science stories.
No science stories.
Lots of science stories.
Oh, good.
At least these three.
See, Rob and I monitor Twitter, and we don't get paid for it. So that's a
True.
pretty sweet deal.
Oh, yeah, well,
Not that
I
was
have
her
my-
entire job or anything. Just.
I have my staff. You know how it is.
Yes. So, anyways, the big news this week, which just seemingly continues to get worse and worse, is this Volkswagen thing. Have you guys heard about this, or am I going to be talking and explaining this to you guys?
Yes.
I've heard about it.
Okay.
Four
So-
lines of code. 4 lines of code is all it takes to dodge around emissions standards.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up comment on it, but after we talk about this part.
Sure. So basically, we talk a lot about cars on this show, futuristic cars that we'd like to talk about self-driving ones, we like to talk about electric ones. We like to talk about ones that use alternative fuels. Diesel is kind of the alternative to gasoline.
Is it?
No, natural gas is. Diesel's not.
Diesel is the other type of
They're
fuel.
they're all separate fractions. I don't see how they're that
Di-
different.
Diesel's just a different type. I wouldn't call it alternative. Natural gas is like, oh, it's cleaner. Diesel just gets better mileage.
Yeah, it's also a hydrocarbon, but yeah.
Now you're just splitting hairs.
All right, so my point is, you can get
Splitting
gasoline.
fractions.
Most cars get gasoline at the pump, but another thing you can get at gas pumps is diesel. That is the alternative to gasoline in that sense. And Volkswagen has a lot of the diesel-powered cars on the
How-
market right now.
We're changing the definition of alternative here. Just
No,
PS.
I'm saying it's the alternative at the pumps to gasoline.
You called it alternative energy? You
No.
called it something that
No,
was.
I didn't.
It's the alternative to gasoline in that it's also available at conventional fuel stations.
Yeah.
It's not really an alternative because you can't just put diesel in your car.
So you understand exactly what I'm saying. I don't know why we're having this discussion.
I don't know why you said it, but yes, we understand what you're saying.
An alternative to gas-powered cars, like gasoline-powered cars, is diesel-powered cars. You can't get a
Okay.
natural gas-powered car on and drive it around the streets today.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
What
you
car?
can.
Well,
Like
I
the
don't know
the
off the
government
top
of
my head,
Canada's
but
fleet,
yeah.
I think, is natural gas powered.
You can
Last
get
I
them.
checked.
They're just not at dealerships. You just have to look for them. But anyway,
All right. Well,
Go
if you
ahead.
find one, I will be happy to eat my words. But for now, let's say you can't get them.
I'm pretty sure, like,
what you
UPS
can.
I'm pretty sure UPS ones run on propane or something like that.
Yeah, there's lots. Okay, just finish what you're saying, Rob.
talking about cars right now. We're not.
Go
Anyways,
on.
the-
Lay it
the
on
point-
us, Rob.
The point of this story is diesel cars, which are a completely conventional, albeit not gasoline-powered type of car.
Yes.
And there's this huge emissions scandal because basically they were gaming the system while they were getting these emissions tests, in that if one of their cars was going through what felt like a test in terms of how the wheel is moving, how the gas pedals are being used, it would get terrible fuel mileage, but it wouldn't use, or it would block a lot of the emissions that were being produced. But when you took it out on the open road, as anyone who's driving it would, suddenly the gas mileage would be great, but it would be letting all these emissions out, like way over, like something like 40 or 50 times over the EPA limit in the States. And so this was finally discovered when they were doing testing on a car, but emissions testing on a car, but out in the open. They had a rig set up so that it was testing the emissions of a car while it was running out on the road. And so basically this just seems to be getting worse and worse, in that we now have the Volkswagen stock has plummeted by billions of dollars in the last few days. The CEO has resigned or stepped down or been let go. He's not with the company anymore.
It was voluntary, though. His contract was almost up.
Okay. And now, just today, other car manufacturers like BMW are being accused of doing basically the same thing on their diesel-powered cars. So yeah, Mike, what did you have to say on the matter?
I guess just to clarify, the stories I read, and it could very well just be the articles that were misrepresenting the facts, but my understanding of it was that the VWs were sacrificing performance, like power, not mileage, in the testing. So it was lower power, therefore lower emissions, but the normal running of the car would give better power, better performance, but higher emissions.
That was my understanding as well.
It wasn't about mileage. That might be a side thing, but
I think it is a side thing.
Yeah, but the main thing was they turned down the performance of it to reduce the emissions, so it just wasn't working as hard, I guess.
Okay.
And I think this is definitely it sounds like kind of how performance enhancing drugs and steroids is kind of like this thing that athletes use, and when they get caught it's a huge scandal, but it's kind of like, well, everyone's doing it, and if you don't do it then you can't compete.
Right. After
hearing the BMW thing come out, that was my first thought, was like, well, it sounds like another one of those, well, everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
The other thing that it brought to mind was how, I don't know if you guys heard about it, I can't remember if we talked about it on the show, but Samsung, for their phones, for the benchmark testing, their phones would recognize when an app that was doing a benchmark test was being done. The Samsung would crank up the performance to perform better on the benchmark test, but their default going when they wasn't running was poor performance.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the opposite of this, or kind of. Or no, it's kind of the opposite.
It was trying to do better on a test.
Yeah, and that was, I wouldn't call that a scandal, because it's not like there's regulations saying your phone must be this good to be sold. But it was they were still deceiving the public with when you look up benchmark tests, when you look up benchmark comparisons for phones, which are arguably non-representative of actual quality. There's a lot of controversy over it. Well, not controversy, but people have differing opinions on it.
Yeah.
It was so misleading, because some of the Samsung phones would be showing as, it's better than this phone, when in reality the everyday performance would not show that. So that was just a side thing that kind of reminded me. And it's that kind of thing where it's like one or two lines of code saying, if this type of app is running, crank up the parameters of this kind of thing. But
in that particular case, though, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I forget if it was me that thought of it or if I heard someone talk about it. It was probably hearing someone talk about it, but that's not that instance of Samsung is not so much gaming the system as it is telling you this is the optimal performance of the phone, because you wouldn't want your processor running full blast all the time, because your battery would just get destroyed.
But that's the thing, though. But in a comparison, like a benchmark, the other phones aren't doing that. It'd be different if all the other phones did the same thing. and said this is the best you could ever do. But the other phones are showing everyday use, not cranking it up where both cores are running and the video card is maxed out, or the video processor's all maxed out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the thing. In a relative sense, it wasn't fair. Yeah, sure, you could say it's showing that, oh, this is the best it could ever do, but the other phones weren't doing that.
Right.
That's where it was misleading.
Yeah, but they're not trying to say this is everyday use. They're trying to say this is what the processor's
But
capable
benchmark
of.
tests are supposed to do that. They're supposed to show in a typical use, say like playing a video, like running a video. Like some benchmark tests literally play a video and monitor the performance. But if the other phones aren't cranking up their processor and their video capabilities, then that's not a representative comparison between Samsung and LG phones.
That kind of benchmark test you're describing, where they open a bunch of websites and play video at medium brightness, that's not the kind of benchmark.
Oh no, I'm not. No, there's some benchmark apps that also have preset videos that they'll play to compare all the phones, and it'll play the same video with the same frame rate, all that kind of stuff on every phone.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's more of a sideline kind of thought that I had. It sounded like a similar thing, but I don't think I haven't heard of any other companies doing that to their phones, where they're baking in
I haven't heard of it either.
in software. But it'll be interesting to see what type of inquiries we see with the auto manufacturers with this. And yeah, I guess with climate change being a big thing these days, I saw one article. I was like, oh, how many deaths could the VW cheating have caused based on like estimates on smog? And I'm like, kind of taking it to the extreme and not really necessary, but kind of dramatic.
Probably not necessary at all.
But I think it's still an important thing to look at and say, well, there's these regulations in here for a reason, like legally and ethically and health-wise. And if you're trying to cheat the system, then that's not something that you want to allow continuing. Yeah.
Nick, did you have anything to add on that?
I mean, it's totally unethical, but you can see the temptation. Because, I mean, I'm sure in an emissions test, it's like the gasoline paddle is exactly here, the RPMs are exactly here, or like the rate of change is extremely low for whatever we're doing. So if that happens, maybe just, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was a lot. It wasn't a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we are being a little bit hyperbolic here, or I was.
There was a company, I forget which one they were talking about, but it was mentioned in one of the articles I was reading about this, that I think it was even maybe a gas-powered car, that you could get a certain amount of performance out of a car with available, under the legal EPA limits of emissions for the first 7 minutes or something, which is how long the test usually is. But then after that, it would start going up. It couldn't keep up with the emissions, and so they would be doing pretty well in the test. But then all of a sudden, you'd look at it after it had been running for an hour or something on the highway and find that the emissions are just way out of control.
Huh.
So that seems like less gaming the system and more just being aware of how the testing works and getting away with it. But it kind of brings into focus that if people are going to be able to be dishonest in order to make money on promises that they can't necessarily keep, then they're going to try to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, like no one's buying a car because it has low emissions. They'll look at fuel mileage, but they're not saying, oh, this has really low emissions. Unless you're buying like an electric car or a hybrid.
Yeah. I was going to say, it depends on how much money you have.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't buy a Tesla because of the emissions. I'd buy it because it's a good car.
I do both.
Cool.
What if you had more money than sense, Mike? What if?
Get one of each.
At that price, I'll buy 5.
Yep. All right, Nick, let's move on and talk about I called this your top story this summer. I don't know if this is actually your top one of the 3 you have. But what's the Frankenvirus?
Oh, that one. Yeah, that's a good top story based on title alone.
Yeah.
Frankenvirus emerges from Siberia. Apparently, given this global warming thing that's been going on, a lot of previously frozen things have ended up thawing, and they've tested some old tissues and stuff like that and found these really, really old viruses that are effectively extinct today. But yeah, this one in particular was really interesting. For one thing, it was huge.
Hmm.
It was over a micron big, which is huge for a virus, just huge.
Right.
And the other interesting thing about them was that it was genetically very complex. So it had on the orders of a couple thousand genes within the virus, whereas I think the common cold today has like 8.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, it's crazy. And that also goes along with, apparently there are also a lot of really interesting archaeological findings that are happening nowadays because the permafrost is thawed and just these things are just falling out of the side of cliffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're wondering if, I mean, in the zeitgeist currently, there's a lot of concern over weird and crazy diseases and potential precipitates for the zombie apocalypse. Maybe the zombie apocalypse virus is frozen in the permafrost.
Maybe. Although we would have probably seen some evidence of it somewhere.
Would
Maybe.
we? If it was in the Ice Age, how would we have seen it, Rob?
Archaeologists would have seen it, I mean.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Is this virus? I didn't read the article. Is this virus like a previously unknown virus?
Yeah.
Okay, and is it
It's
like
like
a, is
brand
it
new
a
discovery.
super deadly virus or what?
They're not sure. They're currently implanting the virus into amoeba, like single-celled organisms, to see what actually happens.
That's really the only logical thing to do is
Yeah.
give the virus to things.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to study it, yeah, but you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
You,
No,
for the
that's
love
cool.
of God, you try and keep it controlled, but
So I'm assuming they've put this into their virus bank that they have, or their disease bank that the CDC has.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's like the seed bank, but they have one for diseases.
I was going to say, is that a segue? Are we segueing?
We're not segueing
We
yet.
can segue if you want. I just wondering if it's that unknown and rare, then you think you'd kind of set some aside to be.
Well, they
saved.
have, I think they have smallpox.
Yeah, I think they have.
And
Well, they have a bunch of them, but yeah.
wasn't
Everything.
there like an accident with that last year where they just lost a vial or something like that?
I kind of remember something along those lines.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Now, how did that happen?
Yeah, but okay, that's kind of cool though that we're finding new viruses and that they're so different.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's
The
a
everyday
lot to
ones.
learn because that's, I imagine, a layer of, what would you call it, paleontology that has just been completely unexplored?
I forget what the word paleo means now.
Virology. I
Yeah.
think.
Paleovirology?
Definitely.
Let's go with that. I like that.
Paleovirology.
I hope that's a thing. It should be a
Sweet.
thing.
It is now.
It is. You heard it here first.
Hashtag paleovirology.
All right, let's switch gears to something completely new instead of completely old.
Are you doing the switch gears thing? That's a Mont thing.
Mike, tell me about Verizon's new network.
About which?
Verizon's new network.
Why don't we? Okay, we can do that. I thought we were gonna segue into the seed bank thing, but
No.
we can talk about this. So we've talked about 5G on the show before,
We have.
but no one's. I think people kind of thought that was like a, oh yeah, we'll get to that eventually. We're okay with our 4G right now. Our LTE speeds are pretty good. I think people were kind of saying that 2020 was when you'd start seeing 5G technology start being more practical and implementable. But there's been an announcement from Verizon, the large carrier in the States, that they're planning on field testing a 5G technology in 2017. So that's 1.5 years away, which is really soon. Which is really cool. And I guess it'd just be a matter of time before phones start getting set up with 5G radios. Or
You'll be able to
downloading,
hit your data cap in mere minutes.
Yeah, pretty. That's what everyone keeps saying,
Seconds.
but
Yeah.
you can only accumulate data as quickly as you can surf the web or cruise Facebook. So there's still going to be, unless you're downloading stuff, that's kind of its own thing, and just have a bunch of torrents that have queued that just continually download all day.
Yeah.
Then yeah, you could do that a lot faster on 5G, but in this, I think for the average user, you're not going to hit your cap any faster per se.
Right.
I don't imagine there being a huge effect. Like, people are already watching YouTube videos in 1080p HD on their phone, so I don't think you're gonna.
Well, 4K. That's what's
Well,
next.
there's no 4K phones yet, and
No.
but
There are a couple 4K phones, I think, but not many people have them.
I don't know what a couple, maybe one,
Well,
if that.
do you know what it is?
I think I saw what's that guy? Marques Brownlee. I think he showed off a 4K phone one time.
Yeah. The thing that I'm interested in seeing with this 5G is it going to be like 3G where everything is kind of the same, or is it going to be something like LTE where there are a bunch of different bands and you have to make sure your phone's compatible and your network's compatible with the bands you have, and there's something like 25 different LTE bands you can get.
Okay. With varying speeds and stuff.
Varying, like it's different sets of frequencies. Obviously,
Right.
I don't know too much about the technology, but the fact that it's not as simple as here's the connectivity, here's your cellular radio, now you can connect to this network. You have a bunch of bands. Like every year, since the iPhone first got LTE with a few bands, every year now they say the network's a little bit faster, but they're just like, now it's compatible with this band and this band and this band, which means you have
Right.
service in more places. But
Right.
yeah, it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. You have some
Yeah. I think that's probably just more of a maintaining the signal versus quality of, like, speed. I think the speed will probably be the same, but will find better signal or actual signal depending on how many bands your phone can pick up.
Yeah.
And I guess on this note of speed, Verizon's quoted or tested their connection to be 30 to 50 times faster than their 4G network, which
Right.
is pretty much as fast as you'd ever need for
Yeah.
any purpose, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, and of course, they probably won't allow tethering ever again for 5G. So,
Definitely not. As we'll mention before we go. So there is one that I'm seeing here that's a 4K phone, the Sony Z5. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Is that the only one? That was
I don't
probably
know.
the one that I saw. If that was the only
It
one.
was released in September. It was released a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay, then that wasn't the one. So then, as far as I knew, there were none, but there might have been one if that's
Okay.
the case. So
Fair
there you
enough. Nick, your next story here about California's water
go.
table.
Well, what does Nick think about the 5G? If he has any comment on it.
I already mentioned my thoughts. Like, oh boy, hit my data cap in seconds now. Woo! Yeah, no, I don't know. That's great.
Well, Nick, you don't
Apologies.
have. You do have a data cap, right?
I do.
Okay. See, I took that as a joke because I don't really think about data caps because
Yeah, I remember.
I'm limited. So
It must be nice.
it is nice, actually.
Yeah, I bet.
Thanks.
I bet it's real nice.
It's the best, really.
More
Anyway.
percenters with your no data caps.
Yep.
Sorry, Rob.
That's okay. Nick, California's water table. What's going on?
Yeah, I would argue this is probably the story with the most significance of anything we've talked about, especially the Apple stuff.
Yeah.
There's been some research done on California's water table with some sort of economic impetus. What could that have been? Was there a drought this summer? Did anyone
There
hear
was
about
a
that?
drought this
Was that a
summer.
thing?
I heard it's been fairly warm.
Yeah. So it got kind of real in California this summer. And so there's a lot of effort going into trying to figure out how to actually boost up that water table, because it is very clearly getting abused, and it's not going too well for some of the farmers there. I listened to a Planet Money where there's basically an arms race in terms of wells now. Like, people's wells are running dry, so they just keep boring down deeper. Because they're growing these like pistachios and stuff that's really thirsty in the middle of what would otherwise be a desert. So, I mean, nobody's stopping them from using that water. So, economics, they're going to use that water, which is kind of sad. But yay, capitalism! So, this idea here was that you can utilize flooding of farmland to increase the water table. So what they have is during the their winter, which I imagine feels a whole lot nicer than our winter, but it is still their winter. They have a lot of storm runoff and stuff like that during their winter. And at the moment, they only have a few places where they can actually try and guide that water down and back into the water table. Like, they have some in Calgary. I think they're called like dry lakes. See them a lot at the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Is that those are for?
Yeah, they collect stormwater and let it drip back into the water table.
Oh, see, I've always seen those stormwater thingies, and I'm like, is that for like a flood? But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there are those, but that's
right.
I think that's a big way to deal with it at like major traffic interchanges and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
oh, cool.
Really good idea.
Yeah.
But California, it's clearly not cutting it right now. So they've had some experiments where they have these floodwaters, and they're saying just divert them into farmland, big open farmland. And what they've noticed is, I mean, obviously different crops can take it to different extents. Like they said alfalfa is really good at taking it. And you couldn't necessarily do this during the growing season, but when everything's laying dormant, it just seems to be fine at dealing with it. And so they're noticing really, really marked improvements in the water table over just one winter. If you just take some of this flood water and actually divert it back into the ground instead of just trying to get rid of it.
Cool.
I'm assuming this has a very local effect, depending where you're diverting it, versus a general rise in the water table.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how, like, the aquifer map or whatever works, but yeah, locally it's great. And if you're a farmer in what would otherwise be a desert, absolutely you should look into that.
Yeah. The table tends to level out wherever you have someone either taking water to lower the table or raising it by having floodwater there. It'll gradually spread out, so it won't be immediate.
Right.
It will spread more than just locally where it is.
But on a seasonal basis, when you're continually drawing water, it probably won't have that time to spread out if it's going to get used up. But
that's true.
It's good that they found a solution for at least the time being till
a temporary solution.
Yeah. When I heard the headline, I was thinking either they were like pumping ocean water onto farmland, which I was like, that would be very useful.
It took me a really, really long time to figure out that they were using floodwater.
Yeah, and then I was like,
is this seawater? What's happening?
Yeah,
aren't you just salting the earth? What are you doing?
I was like, is it ocean water? Or are they like taking water from like their water treatment and just throwing it onto crops? And I'm like, well, that's not going to really do any benefit because you're still using the municipal supply. But okay, it makes sense, the stormwater thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but like Calgary too was having issues with drought. So it
this
could
year?
be. I thought the prairies were, or something like that. Had a bad growing season, I guess.
Okay.
It's funny because my first summer here was a fantastic growing season because
too fantastic even.
Yeah, they had a little bit of water when I was here first.
Yes.
And I'm actually surprised because it was like super hot and droughty with intermittent just weeks of crappy weather.
Right.
Yeah. Though there wasn't actually much rain this summer. It wasn't. Last summer I didn't have to water my lawn at all. This summer I had to do it a couple times. Quite a bit crunchy.
All right. The next story I have here, I do want to kind of come back to that. Maybe we'll have to do it next week. But the 2016 Almanac was released.
Farmer's
And-
Almanac?
Yeah, the Farmer's Almanac. And I don't know if I believe it, but it says hot, dry summer after a very cold winter.
That makes
Well,
sense.
we've also got an El Nino going on, so
Yeah.
Are you being sarcastic?
no.
Me?
No. Yeah, you.
No.
Oh. Why do you find that hard to believe that a cold winter leads to it?
No. I'm not saying it leads to it. I'm just saying that I find it very strange that the Almanac, regardless of possible performance, I don't know if there have been. I imagine there would have to be long-term studies of the Almanac predictiveness and how effective it is. But people, like farmers, rely on it, and it just seems like if we can't predict the weather that far out, how are we going to predict like some sort of extreme weather like that? And unless they're considering global warming and just saying like every season is now going to be like that.
Well, weather isn't the same as climate.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like it's trying to predict this thing, but I wonder how good they are at predicting it.
Like
It just seems like
it
it'd be
just
very
made
hard.
a study on their studies, kind of like
Right.
they evaluate their performance, kind of.
Because
As far as I know, apparently the Farmer's Almanac is just scary good.
yeah, but it does give a day-to-day forecast. Like it tells you
Oh, does
what
it?
you predict the weather to be every day.
Really? Day to day?
I don't really
That's
buy that.
that's my recollection from what I've seen about it. Admittedly, that was a while back, but yeah, like it goes into detail in predicting what it's going to be like based on what it's been.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. So, anyways, I don't want to get too far into that because I don't know too much about it. I just heard about it as we were starting the show. But what I did want to talk about, Nick, you, I believe on this show several times, but certainly in life many times, have talked about this seed vault at Svalbard.
The seed vault at Svalbard, yeah. There might be a blog post on that topic.
Oh, there
That's
might be,
where I
or there
first
will
read
be.
about it.
Feel free to throw a link in there.
I can do that. Okay, so there is one. I thought you meant you were writing one for the future.
No.
Yes. So this is a seed vault that basically they try to gather all manner of seeds that are available on Earth to have a backup in case something goes horribly wrong. So it's buried in a vault underground in, is it Iceland or is it Greenland?
I think Norway. I thought Norway.
Okay, but it's not on. It's part
One
of
of those
Norway, but
countries.
It's further north. It's on
Yeah.
an island that's belongs to Norway, but isn't actually attached.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the point. Because
Yeah.
they're saying, if something goes just horrifically wrong, you can still get to it. And one of the reasons they put it way out in the ocean is that there have been in the past a few seed repositories that were severely damaged. Like I think there was one in Iraq or Iran,
Okay.
Middle East somewhere, and a war happened, and that was just the end of that seed repository.
That sounds like a horrible place to have a seed repository.
So this story that came to my attention this
Wait
week.
a
Not
minute,
in like a bad way, but it's like if you're gonna pick any place, why would you pick a war-prone?
Well, I think that was a national seed repository. It's like
Oh, well,
if it
I guess.
belongs to the country, they kind of,
You didn't say that, but
Oh,
that
sorry.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the actual story. There's a civil war going on in Syria right now, and there is in Syria a seed bank. Apparently, it's the organization that works with it is called the International Center for Agricultural Research in Dry Areas, and basically they had this facility, and parts of it got damaged and destroyed in this Syrian conflict. And so, as part of this,
like this was ISIS, right? Or
it's unclear to me what's going on in that region at the moment. I think there's a lot of different conflicts going on. I'm not sure this one's directly related, but I'm sure it's adjacent. Regardless, I don't want to get political about this. I'm just trying to talk about the seed vault. But basically, for the first time since
you can recite like line by line stuff from the Apple keynote speech, but there's like stuff going on in Syria. It's a whole big thing,
Just listen to East Meets West, and you'll hear all about ISIS and what countries are and are not involved in ISIS.
It's clear that we know that the situation in that region is changing so much that it's very difficult for someone in the West to keep track, and our media doesn't really do a good job of telling us what's going on. It just basically talks about the worst.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like totally ISIS that's the problem at the moment.
They definitely are a problem in that exact region. I'm just not sure that this fight is that this is what happened as part of that fight. But anyway,
ISIS standing for the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
On to the actual story that I'm trying to
Okay, cool. Yeah.
In that area, there is a seed bank, and for the first time since Svalbard was set up, this seed vault is making a withdrawal from Svalbard because they're trying to replenish their own stock of seeds that was destroyed. And I just thought that was really interesting in seeing how, first of all, getting that kind of international cooperation, it's called the Global Seed Vault, so obviously different countries have different stakes in it, but it's really, I guess, good to see it working is the thing. Like, that's the whole point of it, is to have a place that's free from conflict where you can store these things that are really important to farming, etc. And I just think it's interesting to see it working. Obviously, I have to keep up better with my Middle Eastern conflict knowledge, but in terms of this, this is the seed vault in Svalbard doing its job, and that's what I think is worth talking about, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, well, my understanding was the model was kind of sort of library-ish, like countries could check their stuff in. Right. Now a country is making a withdrawal, and the system works. So long as they've got to take the new seed and put it back in Svalbard, but as long as that happens, the system's working.
Yeah.
And it's great that we had something off in the Arctic Ocean rather than, sitting in the middle of the Middle East.
Right.
Is it considered a seed bank?
Yeah.
Then that's pretty much the word you're looking for, is a bank. Like, you put your seeds in, you withdraw.
Mike, just read my blog.
It's like money.
You're like money.
Put your own money in, take your own money out.
Oh, man. All right, Nick, your last story from the summer. I guess this is I don't even know what this would be, a predator-prey study.
Yeah. They studied the populations of predator-prey relationships, and you know how, I think the classic study is wolves and elk or something like that, and they tend to have a certain periodicity to them, and they'll have kind of response cycles. So okay. Population of the prey will go up, the population of the predators go up, the population of the prey go down, the population of the predators go down, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That said, they've run some numbers, and they got a surprising result in that the more prey around, you would assume the more prey there are, the predators are going to have a population explosion, and they're just going to have a heyday with all this food around. But apparently that's not the case, because prey have kind of evolved to, stick up for one another when there are predators around. And it appears that when there are extremely large numbers of prey around, the predators have little to no luck. And you don't necessarily get that population pyramid that you would necessarily expect. And it's really interesting because have we talked about that video that accompanied a thing on reintroducing wolves to Yellowstone Park?
I don't recall that.
No,
Okay,
I don't
I will
remember.
try and find it, and I will try and link to it because it's really cool.
Okay.
Like, apparently there's a river that runs through Yellowstone. I assume there are many, but there's one in particular. And it was, for the longest time, it was just, cloudy and gross. And they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone Park. And what happened was wolves tend to prey upon elk in the like lowlands, the river valleys. And so the elk, instead of being around there and chewing up all the vegetation and, preventing a really good root system from holding all the soil together, uh, the river started running clear again,
Hmm.
just because the elk weren't there stirring things up.
Hmm.
And there was this cascade of effects that were all linked to reintroducing wolves to Yellowstone Park, which was really interesting. But so I mean that's the kind of thing you would have expected, but apparently that's not always the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Science. Learn something new
Glad
every
it's-
day.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, like I think as far as the prey population, like unless there was a shortage of prey for the predators, I wouldn't necessarily expect the predator population to go up with prey availability, because the predators can only consume however much prey per year, regardless of how much prey is around, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you
but
would assume, yeah, sorry, you would assume linear increases. So a linear increase in prey should yield a linear increase in predators as well.
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't expect that. I'd expect an increase in predators to be a decrease in prey for sure, because there'd be
Oh, okay,
there'd
sorry,
be
yeah.
there'd be more predators requiring food. But I think if you have an increase in food, you're not necessarily going to see an increase in predators unless there's a shortage of food that's limiting the amount of predators. But you're saying that this study
Okay.
showed that an increase in it showed that an increase in prey didn't result in an increase in predators.
Yeah, there wasn't a proportional increase in
Yeah,
predation.
yeah, and
And
that
apparently one of the reasons is like, predators tend to prey upon the young or the weak, but if you're extremely outnumbered by prey, there's more prey around to stick up for the young and the
oh
weak.
yeah, that's another effect
Hmm.
too for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's just interesting. It's not something you'd necessarily think about, but
No, but hearing about
there
it,
it
it makes
is.
sense a little bit. Like
Yeah.
it,
And all the best discoveries do. Like
yeah, yeah, for
all
sure.
the best discoveries you look at and go, why haven't we been doing it that way all
Yeah,
along? That makes so much sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, completely different track now. Mike, you posted this. I don't know when exactly, whether it was yesterday or today. Um, I didn't even see it. Fido has some new tablet data plans.
Oh, this has been in my promoted tweets for like the past 2 weeks. So that's honestly the only reason I saw this. So
Interesting.
maybe it's been working. I'm talking about it on the show now, so that's good too.
If you're gonna get it, then yes, I agree.
So this is, and I don't know if it's just coincidental, but it's very similar to the iPhone upgrade plan in the model. So they're essentially offering the iPad, or not the iPad, sorry, a tablet. It's the LG G Pad 2, which is going to be released in September, which is actually, or I guess should be released now, I think,
Mhm.
the 29th or the 30th or something. But they're offering this tablet at a 24 equal installment payments of $10, so a total cost of $240. Or you can with an appropriate data plan as well.
Yeah.
So whatever data plans they offer that you'd like, you can get this financing option, or just buy the tablet outright at $240. So they're not offering the tablet any cheaper. They're just allowing you to finance it if you're on their data plan, which is exactly what the iPhone upgrade plan does. There's no
Yeah.
upgrade aspect to this, but I thought it was interesting like it's at first I was like, oh, they're just subsidizing the tablet, but that's not the case. They're just offering financing.
Right.
You're on their data plan, which is an interesting approach to selling hardware. And I don't know if maybe the iPhone upgrade plan is going to encourage more either service providers or even retail outlets to offer a similar plan.
Hmm.
You know, the difference is like same with the iPhone one and with this Fido one, you're attached to an actual service plan with either the phone or the tablet. So there's in a sense collateral, or you already have a standing credit that they can kind of hold you to. Whereas it's not a no strings attached financing, because they're not going to offer you the financing unless you're also buying the plan with it. So say like if a retailer like Best Buy wanted to offer financing on their their tablets, I don't know if they do that at a zero interest unconditional financing plan.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see if they start getting a bit more creative with how they're trying to sell these, because they're obviously seeing that the upfront cost is often a barrier to people getting it. Whereas a $10 per month makes it a bit easier to justify that kind of purchase. And I'm sure it'd be the same with the iPhone. Maybe for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like
I see it. I don't know that I would do it, but I definitely see it.
yeah,
People would do it.
yeah. But the Fido one. This is the first time I've seen a service provider offering this kind of thing, as far as like financing a piece of hardware that isn't really subsidized. It's just letting you pay for it in installments.
Yeah. Although we talked about this, I think it was in the last episode, we talked about Fido's data plans for tablets,
Yeah.
and they're different and more.
Yeah.
Well, for 1 gig, it costs $20 now, down from 25, but 5 gigs is now $40 instead of $35. So we're going the wrong direction here.
Yeah. Or you can
That's
get
basically the point.
500. Is it 500 or 200 megabytes for $10?
150 for $10.
Oh, that's even worse. But
That's what it was before. That's
Yeah.
what it's always been.
Yeah.
I get that. Like you have to like $10 is a reasonable amount to connect you to the network, but at least give a reasonable amount of data. Like give a gig for $10, and then
yeah,
if you want more, it's just not. It's not a great deal, and it's just
Yeah.
now gotten $5 more expensive if you actually want to use
Yeah.
a human amount of data. And like on a tablet, you're going to be watching, like you use it to watch videos, you use it to like consume content, so you're going to want some actual data on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it annoys me. The prices, like now this data has just gotten even more expensive. Why is it? What are they using to justify that $5 increase in price?
yeah.
This
I
makes
saw-
me want to cancel my iPad plan out of spite.
I saw people complaining about this tablet financing plan, because they're like, oh, I was told it'd be $10 a month, but I'm getting charged 20. What the heck? Oh, it's costing me $480 instead of $240. It's like, oh, Fido, you're misleading, whatever. And it's like, no.
No.
If you actually read what you're agreeing to, you're buying the data plan plus the tablet. So that's where the
Yeah.
10 plus 10 comes in.
Mhm.
But people just, and that scares me that people are able to sign up for that without realizing what they're signing up for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's the exact reason why they're not allowed to offer 3-year agreements anymore. Because after a year and a half, 2 years, people are like, oh, I want a different plan, or I go to a different provider. It's like, oh, well, pay up your $500 cancellation.
Yeah.
But they're not
Have
realizing.
you have you seen the thing on John Oliver's thing on predatory lending?
Yes.
Because it's basically the same thing. Like that's why they
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah, so on one hand, I applaud Fido for being pioneers in this financing thing, but I think like because it makes it sound like such a good deal, I think people might get trapped into it if they're not understanding what they're doing.
Right. Oh well. So we have a couple more stories. We'll try to wrap this up. Mike, this story you have in here about Danish researchers and their speeding up lines is very intriguing to me. I haven't read the actual article yet, just
Okay.
because I want to hear you explain what it's about.
Okay, so I think we've talked about, and you guys have probably seen how people have done simulations on, or maybe even pseudo studies on unloading and loading of airlines.
Mhm.
and how the way it's done now is inefficient, and how there's better ways, but the better alternatives are not necessarily practical to actually implement. Even though on paper they sound good, they're very not ideal in real life. So this is a similar kind of thing. I guess let's use the iPhone, lining up at the store to purchase it as an example. So this study looked at queuing efficiency and service quality using 3 different styles of service, where one group used first come first serve lining up, and people were incentivized to get there first and stand in line a lot earlier and have these longer lines and all that kind of stuff. The other group had a last come first served, where the person at the end of the line is who gets served. So people are disincentivized to be there first because there's a chance that they'll get served last.
Right.
And then the other group had random service. So you lined up and then it was randomly selected who got picked to be served first. So what they found was that the most efficient and the best quality of service was done when it was a last come first serve. That just the flow of it was better, the efficiency was better, just the whole experience was better. But that being said, upon asking people how they felt about the different methods, people felt that the most fair was first come first serve and the least fair was last come first serve, because obviously that just doesn't make any sense in a social context.
Right.
So I don't know, it was kind of a bit of a fluff study and it was more of a headline thing, but I thought it was interesting that people actually bothered to look at it, and I wouldn't expect that a last come first serve would result in more efficient queuing and service, but it makes sense that people wouldn't like that, because I can't imagine that ever being used in real life. That just doesn't make sense.
I don't get how it would be faster.
Well, that's the thing. And I guess going back to the other one, this one isn't an intuitive result to me. I don't understand how that would. I'd have to see their experimental design and that kind of thing.
The person first in line would just never go unless it was dead.
Yeah, right.
It's just it's weird.
But maybe that's what it was.
If you've ever been in a customer-facing role, you'll realize that if the customers just stop leaving, or if the customers just left you alone, you'd do a much better job. And maybe that's what this is incentivizing.
Maybe. Don't come here.
Maybe it's like if you don't have like 100 people in front of you and people behind pressuring you to finish up quickly, but you just have people coming up kind of one at a time because there's no one in line, so they know they're going to get served, then it's just a more orderly.
Maybe, but it's strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have to look more into this.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mike, take us home. You put this as a very high priority story, but also said you didn't have much to say about it, and it is news from a couple weeks ago. What happened?
I think there's a high chance that people may not have seen it, because
there is, yeah.
So, I guess some researchers in, where was this?
South Africa.
South Africa. So, very hotbed for anthropological discoveries related to paleontology and that kind of thing. They had this cave system that was very well known, but I think for the first time someone actually attempted to get into it, because the way to access this cave system, there's very tight spaces, it's dark, it's just inaccessible and impractical to actually get into. But I don't know what the barriers were that weren't there for this group, but I guess this group was the first to actually be able to get into it.
So I can shed a bit of light on that.
Okay.
Basically, it was a gap that was something like, it was a very, very narrow gap.
It was like a 7-inch gap.
And so they got a bunch of female research assistants to go down. Like, the men couldn't fit.
Is that all it was? They just said, hey, ladies, you're small.
They recruited specifically small female research assistants to go down.
Okay.
Look.
I could see that working really well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a few girls I know that I would just like, that maybe they're 5 foot even on a good day. It's like,
right.
It'd be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Would you please go down into this cave?
We will pay you a little, potentially nothing.
Yeah.
We will pay you proportional to your size.
So yeah, they were able to get into this cave, and they found what they seems to be a burial ground with over 15 different unique individuals, I guess, of the species of, I don't want to say proto-humans, because I think there's still a Homo species.
Yeah.
But they've named it Homo naledi, and it's the earliest form of humans. Like, I guess they're considering it a transitional species. I guess everyone's kind of transitional, but in this case, they have limbs of humans, but their head is not as human-like as you'd expect a more developed human to be, I guess.
Okay.
Let me just go back to the details here. Yeah, so the head is unique, but it's similar to the Homo species, and is a smaller type species, so it's not a fully grown kind of human that you'd expect. Is more chimpanzee-like in that sense.
Well, because they could get into that hole in the cave, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as how they got down there, they infer that they were actually thrown, like after they died, they had a whatever ceremony, and they threw these bones into this, or threw the remains, I guess, into this cave that they were able to get into. So that they didn't live in this cave, and that's why they found 15 individuals in this small area, which kind of suggests a burial ground versus.
It's like the equivalent to flushing a goldfish down the toilet. It's like,
I think
off you go.
More
into
similar.
the cave.
More similar to Egyptian tombs.
Yeah.
Versus.
Except for more hucking.
Goldfish down the toilet.
What I had heard is that it was even more than that. It was actually, they were placed there, not even dropped, because there was no sign of trauma. Like, from the orientation of the cave and how they were, it wouldn't just be that they were like kind of shoved down this hole. They were actually brought down.
Okay, see, I didn't read that part.
That was a video I saw from SciShow.
Okay.
YouTube channel.
Maybe that wasn't the video I saw, but I understood it to be that because of the size of the cave, it was inferred that they were like put in there versus.
They were put in there, yeah, but I heard it was not unceremonial.
Okay. It sounds like they were potentially small enough to actually get into this cave anyway, so they very well could have gone in there and kind of been placed there. But yeah, I guess the big news is that they have elements of both the proto-humans as well as more modern humans. So, yeah, it's I guess this is considered the largest assemblage of a single species of hominins yet discovered in Africa. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because usually, like I know, like with Lucy, they found her in pieces and kind of had to put her together in various stages. Whereas this one, they found like full skeletal samples, like obviously set like scattered, but they were able to put them all together and match them up and that kind of thing. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, pretty exciting stuff to see that, and we can celebrate another gap in the evolution chain for creationists to complain about.
Yes. I'll point out. I'll put a link to your National Geographic video and my SciShow video, so we can both watch both, and then everyone else can draw all their own conclusions.
Okay, sounds good.
And this just after they made that universal tree of life thing.
I know.
Now they gotta like redo it again. Jeez.
They should stop making it in pen. All right. Anyone else have anything? Any last thoughts before wrapping up?
It's nice to see you both again.
This was a good show.
It's nice to see you too. This was a very action-packed show.
Yeah.
All All right, well, in that case, thank you again, as always, for listening to this week's Future Chat. I'd like to thank Audible.com once again for helping to support this podcast. Don't forget that you can help us out by visiting audibletrial.com/unwind right now to start your free 30-day trial of Audible's audiobook service. And you can also get a free audiobook through that trial. We'll be right back here next week with more Science and Tech Talk on Thursday again, as we were on this Thursday, unless something changes in the intervening time. But you can find past episodes of the show and plenty more at unwindmedia.com/futurechat. See you next time.
See ya.
Toodaloo.
Bye.